Good afternoon, my friends. How are you on this Thursday afternoon on the 10th day of December for Nana's 10th Christmas story? How many of you like trains? How many of you have heard the story of the Polar Express? How many of you have ridden on a train? How many of you seen the movie, The Polar Express? It's one of my favorites, and I love this book, and it was gifted to me, to our family, back many years ago, and I just thought this is a great story to share today about the Polar Express. Now, how many of you have been to the North Pole? Do you think that's where the Polar Express goes? Well, let's find out where the Polar Express is and goes. It looks like it happens on a very snowy night. So let's find out. Maybe you would like to ride on the Polar Express. On Christmas Eve, many, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets, which means I didn't move the sheets around. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I would never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew that he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of a hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. What would you think if a train came to your house and it was sitting right there in the street waiting for you, just for you? And it was, all the steam was coming from it and all the metal wheels were squeaking and making squeaky sounds. There is the train in the middle of the street. Can you see that? It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Do you think it really was an apron? No. Just a big mass of steam was all around the steam engine. Snowflakes fell lightly all around it, and a conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest and then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and my robe, and I tiptoed down the stairs and out the door, all by himself. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. So on the train goes the little boy. What's he going to find on the train? The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as the snow. That's the candy centers. We drank hot cocoa, thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express moved northward. where is that Polar Express going? Do you think it's going to the North Pole? How long would it take you to get to the North Pole? Uh-oh. There's some wolves in the forest. Woo. Soon there were no more lights to be seen, and we traveled through cold and dark forests where lean wolves roamed. Wire-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. Those wolves, they look like they're looking for lunch or for dinner. We climbed mountains so high, it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we went, and we ran along, rolling over the peaks and through the valleys like a car on a roller coaster. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? I like roller coasters. I like going fast and going up and down. That is fun for me. The mountains turned into hills, and the hills turned to snow-covered plains. That means the flatlands. And we crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. There, said the conductor, is the North Pole. You see the lights over the bridge? They're looking at the lights of the North Pole. There's all kinds of buildings, and the lights are all on. The North Pole, it was a huge city, standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Oh, there's going to be a gift given. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. So only one is going to get the first gift of Christmas. And I wonder what that first gift of Christmas is going to be. And if you've watched the movie or heard the story, you will know. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As one train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with all of Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped, and the conductor led us outside. It looks pretty dark out there, doesn't it? And the steam is coming off the train. Over here on the stacks, you can see the steam coming off, and the snow is still falling. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I had ever heard before. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. Yay, Santa is here! He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, let's have this fellow here. He jumped into his sleigh, and the conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, now, what would you like for Christmas? Have you sat on Santa's knee and told him what you wanted for Christmas? I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him, way up high, and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." That little bell from the reindeer's harness. There's the reindeer, there's Santa in his sleigh, and he is holding up the silver bell that will be the first gift of Christmas. Look at all those people and the reindeer. They're taking off in the light. A clock struck midnight, and as the elves roared their approval, Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket, and the conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out to the reindeers' names and cracked the whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. There he is, flying through the air with his reindeer pulling his sleigh. You can see all the little elves. Oh, they just look little tiny down below. There's so many of them. There's the children. They're back on the train. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I found was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving forward. We were on our way home. Oh no! The first gift of Christmas was the silver bell from the reindeer's harness, and the little boy has lost his gift. I think he is very sad. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at the door and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hand around his mouth and said, "Merry Christmas!" The Polar Express let out a loud blast from the whistle and sped away. And there he is at the door saying goodbye to the train. And he's sad because he does not have his bell. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." Mr. C? That must be Santa Claus. C for Claus. I shook the bell and it made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. There they are. They opened the present. Well, that's pretty sad. The little boy and girl could hear it. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell. But as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found that Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe. So we need to believe in Santa and all that he does for us. And we need to, so that we can hear the bell, the little bell that might ring when Santa comes and brings you your presents on Christmas Eve, so you can wake up and Santa has come. That's what you need to do. And always believe, no matter how big you get, no matter how old you get, you believe. And then Santa will bring you your surprise. So that's my story today, the Polar Express. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming. And tomorrow it will be another story. Thanks for joining. Mwah.